Hey, what's up guys? So you might remember this indoor shooting range project from my last video where we've got the paper target taped up to the wall, then with the USB camera aimed at that, we can analyze that video feed from a processing sketch to then show where a laser cartridge hits. So I've got one loaded here and I'll just aim it at the target, and the processing sketch did the blob detection and centering on that and is showing it in real time over here on the screen. And by the way, this is a Raspberry Pi now running that processing sketch, and that was really the goal of that project, to make it a little bit more mobile. So in this video, what I'm going to do, because it's a perfect example of what I do in Raspberry Pi projects, I'm going to modify that sketch so that it runs on a Raspberry Pi. And since this is, I think, my first Raspberry Pi project, I'm just going to run through all of the steps to get something to run like this. And basically what those steps are going to be is a fresh install of Raspbian on the Raspberry Pi, how to get the display set up, how to run an application on Bootup, because that's what I want this to do. Just power it up and it launches the laser target app. And then also disable the screensaver. And we'll get into some of the other things too along the way, but you know, this will just be a really good Raspberry Pi tutorial in general. And then I've got some kind of cool things coming up too that I want to show you. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, we've got the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B version 1.2 here. The version of the Raspberry Pi shouldn't really make a huge difference. The setup should be pretty much the same, but if it's not, I'll make sure to have notes in the description below just for things to keep an eye out for. This one, by the way, came with a little heatsink kit. I threw one on there, but really not needed, and especially for what we're doing here today. So we got the Raspberry Pi, but really the first thing we need to do is set up the SD card. And keep in mind that I'm making this video for beginners. There's a couple cool things in here, like how to start up an app on Bootup and things like that. So I'll put notes again down in the description below for where at in this video those different things are at, so you don't have to sit through this very basic tutorial here. So anyway, the first thing we need to do though is go to raspberrypi.org, downloads, and we're going to install using NOOBS. So we're just going to download the zip here for the full version. We'll just download that, and then while that's going, we need to format the SD card. I'm running on a Mac, so I'm going to use SD card formatter here. Disk 2 is my 8 gig stick. By the way, you probably want to use at least a 16 or 32 gig SD card. I'm just going to run this one sketch, so 8 gigs should be good enough. So let's just go ahead and format that real quick. All right, now that NOOBS is downloaded and unzipped, I'm just going to drag and drop all of the files within NOOBS over to the SD card. Alright, now we're going to eject the card and set up the Pi. Alright, then it's pretty straightforward. We just need to take the SD card, plug it into the Pi, and then we need a USB keyboard and mouse. You've probably got a million of these laying around. Then an HDMI cable out to a monitor, and then we're going to power it from this micro USB connector. So we need a pretty beefy USB wall adapter. I think they recommend at least 2 amps. So I'll plug that in and then point the camera at the monitor. Okay, so it should boot up to a screen that looks like this, and this is just going to be a lot of waiting around. So we're going to click the Raspbian here, install, and then click install. Click yes, and then we'll just wait for this to complete. Alright, that took a while, but it's now done, so we can go and click OK here, and then it's going to boot up. So let's let it go ahead and do that. Okay, then just some brief setup here, and then let it update. So we'll let it go through that, and we'll be right back. Alright, so that took a long time, but now we have a brand new, fresh, clean install of Raspbian, and we're ready to go. So I'm just going to open the web browser here. I'm going to navigate to that video I made on the laser target and just go ahead and download that. And I'm also going to download processing as well for the Raspberry Pi. So let's do that real quick. Okay, we're going to download Linux for ARM here. And just while that's downloading, you might want to go here. There's something that says running on Pi under the Linux download there. And this is a pretty good reference for everything you might want to do, including controlling GPIO and some other issues or things you might have to install. Okay, so now we have both of those things downloaded. So let's open the download folder here. And I'm going to extract both of these. I'm going to right click on each and do extract here. Okay, so now we have both of those extracted. I'm going to drag both of those folders over to the desktop. And then now we're ready to start modifying that sketch so that we can run it on a Pi. So let's first go into the sketch folder here. And this might be a little hard to see on camera, so I'm going to kind of explain what I'm doing as I go here. But when you open up that sketch folder, I have all of the application folders in there, and I'm going to just select all of those and delete them, because we're going to export a new application after we modify it. Okay, so close that, and then we're going to open up the processing folder, the same folder we downloaded for processing. Within there, just click on processing and then execute, and this will launch processing. Okay, then we can go, and instead of keeping our sketch in the, let's close that. Instead of keeping it in the sketchbook, I'm just going to click open and then navigate to the desktop and then open it straight from there. So laser target app and then click open. Let's close some of these other windows here. And that font is tiny, so let me just blow that up by going to File, Preferences, and I don't know, let's try something huge like 20. Oh, wrong one, 24. Editor font size, there we go. So that's pretty big, hopefully you can see that. So we're not going to change much in here. The one thing to keep in mind is that the Raspberry Pi is obviously not as powerful as my MacBook Pro, so it really has a hard time keeping up on the frame rates. So, and that's critical to this because we need to catch that blob, that laser light flash quickly. So what we can do is try to speed things up or optimize the code here, but really the easiest thing to do is just simply change the size of the screen. So instead of scanning an entire 640 by 480 image, we're going to change that to 320. Oops. We're going to change it to 320 by, oops, I'm screwing up here, by 240, and we're going to change that for the screen of the screen size, and then all of these images that we manipulate throughout this code. And I won't get into the details of that since I did that in the last video. So 320 by 240, and then because I don't really want to have to have a keyboard with this, I'd rather it automatically select the right camera. So I'm going to go now over to camera init here, and then right here where it checks for the camera size, we're going to just change that to 320 by 240, and so that checks to make sure the resolution matches that, and the frames per second is 30. And I was just printing those out, but instead what I'm going to do here is just copy this line right here, which is after the dialog box here that pops up and it asks you to select which camera you want. I'm just going to put that up here instead, so that now it will automatically select that, and it's not going to like that because this is what was returned. So let's put that in right there. Okay, so that'll work. And I'm getting all these errors in here because I don't have the video library installed yet, which we'll do here in a second. So now, once it sees a 320 by 240 at 30 frames per second, it's going to print it out and do all this stuff, and then it's just going to connect to it. So right at this point, then now we can break out of this for loop and then actually connect to the camera. But I need to get rid of all this stuff here because we're not going to launch the pop-up dialog box. Okay, so let's now go up to Sketch, Import Library, Add Library, and then we're gonna search for video, and we're gonna use the one from the Processing Foundation and install that. And while that's going, you'll see up here that there's the GL video. That's the hardware accelerated video, and that is pretty good for working with the Raspberry Pi camera that you actually plug into the board. This video library will work just fine with a USB webcam. So that's why we're going to just leave things the way they are for now. Okay, so we've got that installed. And one other thing, and this is one of those things that'll take forever to figure out, but in order for the Raspberry Pi to detect the USB camera, we need to install something extra here from the command line. And by the way, I'll put links to all of this stuff in the description below, so you don't have to try to figure out how I'm typing these things out and everything. So we're going to go and launch terminal. Okay, and then if we scroll down here on this GitHub page for the wiki, or it's the wiki page for the Raspberry Pi from processing, they actually have a lot of good stuff here. But if you scroll all the way down to the video library, they'll actually show the error code that you would get if you ran this and what you need to install. So it's sudo apt-get here for the GStreamer plugins. And I'm just going to copy that and then right click over here in the terminal, paste it, and then enter. And maybe I can blow this up a little bit here too. Hey, there we go. It's a little better. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install that. Okay, so now that that is installed, we should be able to see the USB webcam from this processing sketch. And I'm just going to quickly skim through that, make sure this all looks good. That should be fine. And then over here, just quickly skimming through 320 by 240. That should all be good. So I'm just going to, because I'm confident this is going to bite me, but we'll go ahead and run with it. I'm going to export this out, Linux only export. Okay, cool. So now we've got the application exported out. Before we run that, I'm just going to close out of everything, and then let's see, we're going to go and click on Preferences, Raspberry Pi Configuration, and I just want to double check a couple things here. Let's go to the Performance tab and increase this GPU memory setting to 128. We'll hit OK on that, and then it's going to ask us to reboot. So let's go ahead and let it reboot, and we'll be right back. Okay, it rebooted, and now we're going to click in the Laser Target app folder, and then we're going to go into the application Linux ARM v6hf, and then double click on the file in there, and then execute, and then just give it a second. All right, cool. So now we can read from the webcam, so that's good. That took me a long time to figure out. That wasn't very obvious to me. And now we're just going to quickly test it. Okay, so there you see we're getting the blobs there. They're kind of big. on the screen there, and that is because we left them the same size. And that's pretty easy. If you go back to that other video, you would see how we change or how we configure the diameter of those spots so you can make them smaller, and that's actually what I did too. Okay, so now we're gonna get to some of the cooler stuff here you can do with the Raspberry Pi. And for right now, the big thing is to automatically start that application when you boot up, because I really want this to be completely standalone. And just wait till you see what I got coming up on this. So I just want this thing to power up and then boot up and start running that application. So to do that, we need to write a shell script. So we're going to right click on the desktop and create new empty file, and then we'll just call it run target app dot sh. Okay, and then we're going to double click on that, and it should just open it up like this as a blank file. And then right at the top, we're going to type hash exclamation point / bin / sh, just like that. And then we're going to run sudo space, and then we need to go and get the path for the file we want to run. So we'll go back into the laser target app and then the Linux ARM v6h, and then right click on that file we clicked to run it before, and copy path out. Yeah, copy path. And then we're going to paste that right in here, and we should see the full path right in there. And then let's just go ahead and save that, close out of it, and then what we have to do is change the permissions on this shell script here to run, and we're going to right click on that, go down to properties, permissions, and then right here on the execute line we want to make sure that anyone can execute it. Click OK, and then let me double click on that properties again. Yeah, well, all looks good. Okay, cool. So now if we double click on this, we get this little pop-up here, and then we can click execute, and we should see our application starting up. So there you have it, and then it takes a little while for the webcam to initialize and everything, but eventually we will see there it is. There's our application running. And again, quick test here. There you have it. So that is how to create the shell script, but now how do we boot up and run this file? So, and this is, the one nice thing about this is that a lot of times you'll have to run a bunch of stuff, and what I'll do is just add it all in right here. Like for example, if you're running like a TFT screen or something like that and you have to initialize it, you can put that right in here. So once it boots up, it automatically will initialize the screen. So now what we need to do is edit a file so that we can run that shell script on boot up. So let's launch the terminal, and we're going to, let's see, we're going to go type in sudo nano, and we're going to do /etc/profile, and all the way at the bottom of this file, we're going to add in our shell script path. Okay? Let me copy that path out, paste that right in here. Okay? And then the most important thing about this is that you add in the ampersand symbol. Okay? Yeah, so we need to add in the ampersand symbol here at the end. So you'll put in the full path space ampersand, and this will run that shell script. But the most important thing is this ampersand, because if you don't have this, it will lock up right here at this line. You want the thing to continue to boot to the desktop, and then just execute this, trigger this application to start up here, and then escape out. So we're going to go ahead now and do Control X, hit Y, hit enter, and then we're going to test it out and we'll reboot. Let's see what happens. All right, there you have it. So you see It's already starting to launch the application. And this is actually pretty quick, and I've tried to do this several different ways. And you can do it different ways, actually. But this seems to work out the best. It seems just to be the fastest way of doing it. So anyway, there you have it. We've got the application now starting on Bootup. The next thing we want to do is disable the screensaver, because that, again, is a very annoying thing, especially if this is going to be sitting up on a shelf somewhere mounted, you know, in the field. I don't want the screen blacking out. So what we're going to do now is, again, another terminal command, and I'm just pulling up my notes here. Okay, so we're going to launch terminal, and we are going to do sudo apt-get, and we're going to type then space install, and let's see, what is this called here? xscreensaver. Yeah, just making sure I typed all that in right. Again, looks like I lost focus there. Yeah, man. Okay, that's better. All right, who knows how long that was out of focus for, so sorry about that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and let that run. It's going to install this, and this is a little screensaver utility. So we'll hit yes, go ahead and install that. And this allows you to disable the built-in blanking of the screen. There, again, are many ways of doing this, but this seems to work the best. Okay, now that that is done, we should be able to then go up here and go down to preferences, and then we'll see a new thing here. We can click on screensaver. So we'll open that up, and we got a crash for some reason. Let's try opening it again. I closed the application there. Screensaver, there we go. Doesn't seem to be running on display 00. Oh, okay. Okay, well, I haven't seen that pop up before, but whatever. So then we go to mode and then disable screensaver. And that's it. That's all you got to do. And there's some other things in here, like if you do want a screensaver, or if you want more control over it, you could do that here. So that is everything you need to do. And then now I'm just going to exit out. And then now we want to prepare the Raspberry Pi for the display. So I don't have that hooked up yet, so I'm just going to go in here and just make sure that we've got everything ready to go here for the display. So obviously you go through all of the updates and everything, but one of the things we're going to add in here, you know, they always say sudo apt-get update, run through that. We should be totally fine because we just did a fresh install here, but we'll just go ahead and do it anyway. Yep, so there it is, fine. And we'll also do an upgrade on the same thing, sudo space apt-get space upgrade. Okay, same thing. And everything is good. Now, we're going to do a sudo space apt-get space install space Raspberry Pi dash UI dash mods. Okay, again, I'll put all this stuff in the description below. Okay, and we should already have that. All right, we've got that, and then we're going to do, instead of UI mods, we're going to do -net mods. And again, we should already have this. All should be good. And then one last thing that I forgot to do, it's going to be a sudo space apt-get space install. Nope, sorry. Space dist dash upgrade, and that should be it. And again, these things should all be already installed, ready to go. And that's it for, I don't know if I actually had that all on screen. I'm being really bad in this video. So anyway, there you have it. So now the Raspberry Pi should be ready to run on that touchscreen. So now let's go ahead and hook that up. All right, so now we've got the display. We're ready to hook it up. And on the Pi side, we really don't need anything. The only thing we've got to hook up is the USB cable for the webcam and also power. So we're going to just hook that in over the micro USB input. For now, I've got something coming up pretty soon on that you're going to really dig. So I'm just going to go ahead and screw this down. And before I do that, though, let me just mention these wires over here. So these are the wires that we need to hook up to the GPIO header here on the Pi to give the display power and also connect up to the I2C bus for the touch controller so that we can actually use the screen as an input device, which will be nice for this because, you know, we still need a way to shut the system down as well as clear the target from the processing sketch. So let's just screw this down real quick here. And you might not want to screw this down before you hook up those wires because it's kind of hard to see the silk screen under the board there. So first thing we're going to do is just plug in this ribbon cable. So plug that in and then seat it with, there we go. Okay, so that's nice in there. And then now we've got 5 volts and let's move that over. We got 5 volts and ground. And then I found this website here that has a nice little assembly guide for this touchscreen. And what you need to pay attention to is the pinout here on the GPIO header. So if you look at this right here, you see 5 volts. It might not be easy to see there. Oh, well, there we go. So you see 5 volts, and that's right there. So that would be this pin right here, okay? And that might not even be easy to see. But it's the pin closest to the board edge at the top here. So I'm going to go ahead, and we've got 2 5-volt pins. I'm going to go ahead and use the second one. And then ground is all the way over here. And I'm going to go 1 down from that. And then I actually have to look at the silk screen to see what's next. So my yellow there is SDA. Okay, so you can see that's right next to the 5 volts there. So I'm going to plug that in right like that. And then, man, this camera and the focus. There we go. And then we've got right below that SCL. Okay. And we've got that now. So SDA, SCL, and then we should be good to go. So I'm going to now kind of tuck these wires in a little bit. Yeah. I should have used shorter wires, but that's all I got. So whatever. All right, I'm going to flip this around now, and let's plug in the micro USB cable. I've got this hooked up to kind of a cheap adapter, so hopefully it works, because the display does pull a little bit more current on it. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the rainbow screen. I was a little nervous there. We got the rainbow splash screen there, so that's a good sign. We're seeing that it's booting up. And then hopefully we see, come on, there we go. So that's a very good sign. If you didn't get this far, you would definitely have a problem. I think it can only run one display at once by default. So if you had an HDMI cable still plugged in, I think it would default to that. So just in case you're having problems, keep that in mind. Oh, there we go. So we boot it up, and you can see there that it's launching our application there. I kind of jerked it around a little bit, so hopefully, yeah, there it goes. Cool. So now we have the whole thing, and let me just test it out. Pretty bad aim, but oh, totally missed there. Kind of doing this. Let's pull this over. There we go. Oh yeah, see, by the way, the touch screen there will reset it. Okay, so if I were to touch this now, it resets my targets. So that is everything. And in a future video, I will show you what this, oh boy. I will show you what this here is all about, which is going to be very cool. This makes this even more standalone and more ready to go in a sort of that portable footprint. You know, I want to have a 3D printed case and then a single button on top, which would be this button here you see in this little circuit I came up with. So this, when you press the button, will power up the Raspberry Pi, which is cool, and that's pretty straightforward. But also, within the processing sketch, we're going to monitor this button so that when you press and hold it after 5 seconds, the processing sketch will actually shut down the Raspberry Pi for you, and then a signal will feed back into this latch circuit to kill power to the Pi. So very, very cool stuff there. But in this video, I just wanted to go through the basics of getting a Raspberry Pi set up. So we did that. We modified the processing sketch, got that running, got it talking to the USB webcam. We got it started or launching at Bootup. And then now you see we've got it on the 7-inch touchscreen there. So that's all the pieces I wanted to go over in this video. Hopefully that was helpful, not too boring. I got a feeling this video, haven't edited it yet, but I'm sure it's going to be a long one. So hopefully that wasn't too boring and you found it helpful. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.